Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We conclude the first rounds of BO5s. We can now confirm that we're going to have Civil War in the upcoming matchups, and that is going to continue already tomorrow. If you don't know, I am co-streaming in the name of G2 every single BO5. Tomorrow we're going to have two best of fives. We're going to start at 1 o'clock with T1 versus GENG, and then we follow that up with a Mad Lions G2. And then on the next day, we will have Golden Guardians versus C9 and then JDG versus Bilibili. So, already teams playing for their tournament lives. Of course, I'm referencing the North American teams and the European teams. That will be a tough beat. Getting absolutely smoked, roasted, and cut up like a sushi roll. And then to lose to a domestic team and then to be sent home. That is a brutal MSI. Shout out to everyone that has been following this series on YouTube. I appreciate it super much. Let's jump into JDG versus GG. JDG start off with banning YamatoCannon and Ari. They want to line up for a first pick jungle pick. I thought here they're going to pick Vi over Maokai, but in terms of the priority that JDG had on Vi, maybe they looked at this differently. Maokai is something that sets up the potential Jace combo, and this is something that, of course, JDG like a lot. So, Maokai first pick, and then they follow up on red side. They've banned Nidalee. Kind of a classic, you know. Maybe they don't feel comfortable playing against Nidalee. I think that's something. I feel like this is where you should be willing to maybe take a risk or two, you know, because I think winning with Nidalee requires such level of precision, and I think if you want to invite a champion like Nidalee, I think there is room to explore that. But maybe they're afraid of. I don't know. It's like I think K'Sante and Nidalee is a strong combo and probably the strongest one that you can pick because it gives you the most flexibility because K'Sante can go top and also matches well with Nidalee. But all in all, like when K'Sante is out because it's his first ban and GG respond to the ban, I feel like, you know, you can open up the situation with like just test the waters on Nidalee. It's like the West has won one game against the East and it's against Nidalee. It requires a lot of precision, and I think that you can, maybe this is where you find some leeway. Annie's banned. Knight is probably the most successful Annie player. I feel like I was talking about this with Jizuke. I feel like a lot of mid laners didn't take enough time to actually practice Annie, and they took for granted that Annie is easy to play. But I think there's small nuances that you need to know in order to get the most out of this champion. And I think that Annie is still really OP, and Knight is definitely a player that does it super well. Vi gets banned on 3, and then Maokai gets first picked. Here at Golden Guardians, you know, usually here you have a choice. If you pick only one part of your bot lane, it means that you want to slam jungle, and then you want to make sure that the third spot is premium and opened. I feel like Xayah Rakan is probably the strongest, I feel like easiest to execute bot lane that gives you the most flexibility on the patch. But in cases where you really want to set a high prior on your jungle, picking something like Aphelios or Jinx allows you to then drop support or match enemy on 3. Right? I think that the Sejuani didn't get me too excited, right? Sejuani has been nerfed and into the Maokai, but it also kind of signals that they have some intention here to potentially play a bruiser top. JDG follow up with Jace and Jinx. Same principle as the Aphelios, right? If you want to pick one part that is not your bot lane, then you're aiming to pick either Jinx or Aphelios. Zeri Lulu. Zeri requires the support to be picked. Xayah Rakan prefers to have Xayah Rakan picked together. Lucian Nami. You guys get the gist of it, right? Aphelios and Jinx, 2 ADs that allow you to drop. Right? The big Nautilus on 3, which is perfectly fine. Like here, you can set up Nautilus support for success. But considering Golden Guardians' bans, here the Lulu, I think the Lulu is quite strange. I feel like Aphelios Nautilus should be willing to play into Jinx Lulu, but then again, it's missing on Lulu. And, you know, Jinx, ruler together with the Lulu, I can understand the thought process. They follow up with the Renata. Like here, I thought the thought process would be, yo, 4th pick Sion and then flex the Nautilus till 5 and create a circumstance where you have a beneficial bottom side. But they kind of flipped the script. And they flex Sion into mid to invite the Gwen and then the Jax. Because usually, if you want to do it the other way around, right? I realize this in hindsight. If Golden Guardians wanted to set up like basically blind pick Sion here, they would have changed up their bans and maybe invited a Renata and then counter pick a Renata. But then again, who here has the most success when he's playing the melee supports and not so much the ranged champions? I think that this is something that Golden Guardians did well. It's like, I think Golden Guardians are aware of their identity, which is something that play-ins gave them, and I also think that they tried to actually fight when they did have timers. So Sion is picked, Gwen, and then Braum, and then the Jax on 5. You're playing Nautilus into Braum, and I think this Jax is basically, you're putting all your eggs in the Jax baskets, right? It's like you're sending a Nautilus into a blind pick Braum when you could have potentially sent Sion top and then maybe counter Braum. Maybe the comp would have looked weird, right? You have like fucking Sejuani, Nautilus, Sion, but then it comes back from before, right? It's like you would pick Aphelios and then you probably look for a different jungler here, a jungler that can do a lot more damage and pressure more, and then you go Nautilus on 3, and then you pick Sion on 4 with Sion bans, and then 5 pick a support counter, right? That could be an example, right? But they invited the Gwen with the Sion flex. Sion into Jace is perfectly fine. I like it. And then you have a Jax into the Gwen, which is, in my opinion, a favorable matchup for Jax. But Jax needs to be the one, creating opportunities. So looking at this game, I think in terms of scaling, blue side, the Braum value is going to be massive. Jax is pretty good into all champions that are showing here, besides maybe Maokai. But the scaling here for JDG should be better because it's way easier for them. Like the enemy has only one way to approach situations and gain pressure over mid and areas. They need to press forward, and it's very easy for Braum and Maokai and Gwen to deny that, right? So GG definitely need to snowball this game. Looking at what happened in game, this was a relatively quiet game, but quiet in the sense that there was no kills on the board, but there was a quiet lead just building in the bottom side. All of a sudden, Ruler, we didn't get to see much of the action. I think here maybe you could look for a kill because 369 is playing with Ignite instead of with Flash or any defensive summoner. So I think that you should just look to Q and press your abilities and see what's up. With your summoners, I think maybe they could have done something here. I think if the way I view this though, I thought that Licorice is going to push 3 waves into bounce if they want to look for the potential punish. But it didn't happen. They just looked for the Licorice base instead, and then 369 is a-okay. They managed to get the Jace base. Gwen TP's back, Jax TP's back. Refillable double longsword against Ruby. Should be fine for Jax. River goes to secure bottom side. They get this little push out going, and Jinx and Braum don't let the wave crash. They're keeping it in position, so Sejuani practically just wasted time here. Stixxay is losing a lot of HP, is getting bonked, and they're sharing auto attacks from the rockets. Kanavi walks in here with a Ruby, with a giant spell advantage, and Aphelios and Nautilus are pretty much just dry basing. This is a completely dry base, and they didn't even catch the wave, and they're just straight up lose too many waves here off of the situation. So Sejuani backed them up. They couldn't crash the wave. And then the enemy was slow pushing a wave, and they decided to just base naked with Aphelios, which is kind of crazy. It's like this is a 20 CS lead already, which is insanity, right? And I just think it comes from the fact that Sejuani stepped into bot, they didn't push the wave on time, the timing was bad, and they choose to base when the enemy is pushing, and they cancel the Nautilus, and Nautilus couldn't get the freeze because the wave was too big. So this was a misexecution from Golden Guardians, in my opinion. We continue. As a Noon Quiver into Pickaxe, this is also kind of disturbing, right? This is very similar to some of the things that happen in the Bilibili series. It's Hui crosses mid and is punching a ward. This wave is slow pushing towards Stixxay. Stixxay could be with his Nautilus right now as well. They could maybe look for a play. Maybe they can look for a red buff invade while the enemy team is catching this wave and the wave is bouncing out to blue. Imagine here Stixxay is together with his team here. They pressure from behind. They look to pressure these guys. Would have been a lot better. But all in all, this is a very, very terrible mistake. Like this is not something that you want to see in your game. Blue side JDG secure the red, and they continue. At least here Stixxay with the tempo death, on the Jinx, he has a tempo death, comes back onto map much faster, and then they can do Drake. Sejuani had good position, Hui had good position, and Hui got level 6 from taking the bot wave on his own. So maybe it's just a genius at play here because they managed to secure a Hextech Dragon. We continue. Next thing that we line up for here is the Cristiano Heraldo. JDG, you know, very common to place a ward on the Rift Herald. I think Kanavi needs to pull it out. Licorice had information on Maokai, so he just connected, you know, fighting against Kanavi. It gets reset. And here in these type of positions, right, it's like Golden Guardian's composition is very strong. It's like Braum is on mid here. Oh, Braum is on mid here. And in my mind, it's like if I look at red side champions, they have a lot of tools to like CC chain into Scion ult. Like they are very strong in this spot, right? Keep in mind, it's like even though Jinx is ahead, the fruits of her labor is something that, you know, you're going to really, really benefit from later, right? And the same thing for Jace, you know, he's buying tier and long swords in comparison to a Scion that is buying like a Bramble Vest against a relatively AD heavy composition just in this moment in time because Gwen is not going to participate so fully. So here Scion just ults and the hook lands. You know, this is a very, very serious mistake here from JDG because they're disconnected. Ideally, you want to have Jason Braum already in position, you pull out the Herald, and then you leverage the fact that Gwen can be first. But Golden Guardians, as I mentioned at the beginning of this, Golden Guardians are very good at pulling the trigger. This is something that C9 just couldn't do. It's like, what happened in the C9 series yesterday was that Elk was posturing forward and completely like spitting on the enemy in a way where he makes the enemy show and he didn't even like make him burn anything. There was never any attempt of a Scion ult. There was never an attempt of a Rakan engage into pressure. And I think that they struggled, especially in that game where Blabber was playing Kindred, because usually Blabber is the guy who really, really creates fights when it's necessary, right? So this was a very good engage here from Golden Guardians, right? Misplay from JDG, I think it's also arguable, you know. Like, they have good top conditions, but I think here, if they pull the Herald towards bot side and Jason Braum decide to connect instead of like masturbating on the mid wave against a Scion, maybe things would have looked different. But I think either way, Golden Guardians' composition is very hard here. It's like Sedge ult into Scion ult, Nautilus Q, like these tools are very, very strong at this point in the game. Braum needs to deny super, super much in order for Golden Guardians not to be successful. So the current state of the game, even though they are 1k gold behind due to what happened bot and some of the CS advantages in top, this is a very, very good condition to be in. Rift Herald, like the Electro Drake, everything is looking gorgeous. We fast forward to the next sequence of the game. This is also gorgeous, you know, very, very important timer here, right? It's like here, this is just 369 kind of trolling, right? Because here Licorice decides to base and 369 could have just found a recall. 369 decides to push this cannon, right? He decides to push this cannon. He has the time to push this cannon, but he just needs to piece out. But I think he's just oinking, and Licorice gets to base, TP back, and River just stayed, and they look for a kill. This is so important because in terms of the gold that Jax gets out of this is, of course, first and foremost, Gwen has to TP back to the lane. Second, Jax bases and finishes the Divine Tsundere, right? So, very big swing of gold here. You know, all gold is not built the same. If 400 gold can sometimes mean a ruby crystal or you finishing a big recipe like the Divine Sunderer. Very, very important to highlight that. Also, Ruler pulling off the mistake of our boy Stixe. Here, Braum is not on the map yet. I'm not sure where he was or what he did because of the replay. He's just basing, just a dry base here. Ruler is pressuring with the Braum from Fog, and the wave is bouncing into him. And Braum is now opening on bot. You know, maybe you could argue here that Braum doesn't need to base, but I think that they're just fake pressuring that Braum is staying, and Ruler is just pretending that he's here, and they know due to the circumstance that Stixe has no sum, and who has no sum and no ult, that maybe they can look to pressure. But Braum decides to base, and Jinx is playing like he still has Braum behind him. And he wanted to fake pressure, but River finds a little good catch, and Ruler has no flash from before. So another punish. Here, a little bit of insanity here. Huhi and River really take the bait here. I think Stixe is making the right decision to just hit the turret. And the issue here why Kanavi and Missing can just 1v2 them is because the spells of Golden Guardians are not landing and they're overreaching and they're getting, you know, like Kanavi's getting so many rotations of spells here. They got Q'd 2 times already, and they're getting 2v3'd by Maokai and Braum. Sure, you could say, wow, Maokai looks so OP here. Sure, he has, you know, the Embrace. What's it called? Deathbringer's Will. I keep forgetting the name of this item because I think of the trinkets from Wrath of the Lich King, you know, Ice Crown Citadel from Overlord Sourfang, you know, the 4th boss, the armor pen trinket that turns you into like a Taunka. Demonic Embrace, thank you very much. I don't know, I don't know why I explained the whole Ice Crown Citadel shit. It's not even phase 3 yet. True. That's not even phase 3 yet. We're still in Ulduar. Alright, we continue. So the Divine Thunder finished. We talked about it. We talked about the bot situation too. All they need to do was hit the turret. They could have collected a lot of gold here and set up Stixie for success. But he bases on Gale Force still, so it's not that bad. Here, once again the same. Like this setup here is so disrespectful from JDG. And Golden Guardians were very quick to punish. If you look at what we are walking into, right? It's like in this particular spot, Jinx is going bot to catch a wave. And I really like here that the River is pulling the Drake towards his Aphelios and Nautilus side, so he doesn't get punished here on the Pixel. Very nice positioning here by River, right? Jinx is in isolation, but even in a case where Jinx would be connected, I don't think they win here. This is like a dream fight for Sejuani, Sion, and also Nautilus. It's very easy for them to hit them where it matters. Why try to beat the East at their own game? We have to come up with new strats to beat them. The thing is, it's like you can find champions that might change how the enemy needs to approach fights and sometimes lane phase, but the rules of the game don't change. It's like, I feel like what people are expecting in this whole draft conversation and people to say invent new strats, it's like on the Summoner's Rift, 1 + 1 is still 2. You cannot say 1 + 1 is 3. Like the rules of the game still remain the same. And the biggest shortcoming that the Western teams have against Eastern teams is strictly macro and conceptual things. You can pick different champions. You can find counters that can give you slight edges. But even in these drafts, there's been edges. There's been advantages. But in the end, you have to be able to go blow for blow in the basic fundamentals of the game. It's like, for me, the biggest shortcoming right now between the West and the East is just mid to late game execution. It's like how you open up on the map, how you play around vision, how you play around information, and how you cross into side, how you pressure objectives. These are the details that are so important, and that is every time this whole tournament, the West is losing there. The C9 series is the biggest example of macro gap, plain and simple. C9 didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They didn't know at all what they were doing. Because in theory, Elk was 2v5ing. It's like, you know, it's the equivalent of, let's compare it to chess. Sorry, Zara Kikimpashi, you said a lot of nonsense. Right? Because I'm already talking about this, right? It's like macro-wise, the execution is just not there. And of course, regionally, like if you play against worse opposition, you get away with more. That's true at any level. It's like, I'm going to win playing a certain way in silver that might not work in gold. And I might win a way in gold that won't work in platinum. And this also extends deeper. I think the thing though, right? I think that's something that is, first, understand the macro, And then you'll begin to realize why certain champions are being picked over and over again, right? It's like people are memeing on Lucian Nami in the West because people don't fucking understand Lucian Nami in the West. Lucian Nami in the West, you put vision around mid and you give them all the space to dash on the opposition, and then the enemy will begin to flock around mid and they will create so much pressure that will allow you to farm side lanes better. Right? But people say, oh, Lucian Nami is bad. Right? It's like, understand the macro and how to play the map, and the champions itself, which champions are really, really strong in the game, will be revealed to you. But if the enemy is playing a completely deeper layer of the game, and you're picking champions because they are good in your own personal theory, they won't work in practice because the enemy is playing layers deeper than you. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely ways to find edges in draft. And I wouldn't claim that I know every single champion or every single interaction. There's I'm sure there's champions lingering that I don't know are OP. And I agree with the notion that if you try to play the champions against a person, like if I'm playing against a player that is better than me, and I'm playing in his sphere of knowledge, I will have a disadvantage. That's why 2018 Vitality, we tried to make sure that we were as awkward as possible, because we knew on paper Fnatic is better than us. But that made us giga dangerous, because we were the only ones that had the most practice in the realm of thinking that we were operating under. If we tried to model ourselves towards Fnatic, then we're just a worse version of a different team, and we are going to get smoked by everyone else, because everyone else is practicing to beat Fnatic anyway. Right? So I understand that notion 100%, but I still think if you can't compete at a fundamental level, right, in terms of how to approach the game, these things matter a lot less. Because if you don't understand the concept of the game, you also won't understand which champions are actually strong. This is very nice. Well, the guys pull the trigger, right? They catch bullshit and they use their windows. I like this a lot, right? It's like here, like, I don't understand how he can miss this, right? Like, it's really troll that he misses this. But this looks like a very good fight. It's like, sure, maybe they can wait a little bit longer on Aphelios because the enemy team is contesting, right? And the timing could be better. Like, this is where it becomes like team fight execution and mechanical timing. Like, if they waited a little bit longer, it would have changed a lot, right? And Nautilus missing Q here, and it's like River throwing ult when it's not necessary. He can just Q into W and hit, hold ult. Like these are details where individual play actually matters, right? It's like they could wait a little bit longer. They could start with QW of River, but now the enemy flashed out and they burned a lot of their tools before Nautilus could hit, and Nautilus couldn't hit, right? So this situation that inherently was really good. They pulled the trigger, they misexecuted, but JDG walk away, you know, without any pain here, right? But this position, Jinx cannot connect to this fight, and this is a Gale Force Aphelios, and what these three are doing looks quite dangerous to me. But at least Golden Guardians try, right? They recognize that this is a favorable position for them, and then they are playing. But yeah, Gori is kind of piecing out. Like, I don't know what Gori is doing, right? He completely pieces out. He doesn't play for his team when the enemy pushes forward. Like here, he channels Q, right? And he's waiting Q spell, but here he needs to cross with his team, right? He loses his position completely, and then they walk out. Like, Gori is completely out of the fight. Like, this is where, like, team fight execution matters. But this is just mechanical skill, right? This is just mechanical skill. Because the idea of how they contested and how they fought was good, but they just misexecuted really hard. Right? So we continue. And now the game is really fucking tough because like Jinx got so fed, and we already talked about blue side being the strongest scaling team. Now it's really, really tough already. But let's look at these details, right? We just pay attention to the movement of JDG. Here, right? Now Gwen is deciding. Gwen sees that the mid play is over. So they just decided that the mid play is over, right? So Gwen decides to go bot. And here, I really like the Desire ult. This is good fundamental play, right? The thing is, how can't they understand? It's like teams understand, but there's layers to it. So people understand that they need to open on mid, but they might not understand where they need to move, or where they need to be, or how they need to pressure. And where they lose seconds, the enemy steals waves, and then the whole sequence changes because the enemy gets to take waves. This, for example, is a very good play from Golden Guardians. Right? They know Gwen. They know Gwen is on base. And now Sion pushes bot. And now there's a wave in bot tower. And now when Sion moves into mid, he says, I want to fucking fight. This was a good play from Golden Guardians. It didn't end well, because JDG just played good, and then here like champions come into play, right? And Sion ults, and they're looking for something here, right? This is cool. Right? But they are looking for something, right? This is something that C9 was lacking yesterday. They didn't pull the trigger in the moments where they had timers and swings on Sion. And now Gwen starts pushing. And now it's the enemy Gwen window to move into mid, because they're gonna catch top, right? And I thought this play also from Hui was quite clever, right? I think here this play is clever. Hui is looking, they know. It's like right now, Golden Guardians have full information that JDG is playing top side. And they feel, red side right now, they know in their comp, yo, we need to look to pressure and fight. Knight has no flash. This is a good play. I like this. Now they're collapsing onto side. Jinx is crossing into mid. Gwen is going to take over, right? Gwen is taking over mid here, and I think Jinx should just go top side with her team. Right? But Jinx bases, so she's in isolation, and they look to kill Knight. But obviously, once again, the execution can be better here, right? It's like here, I don't know why Hui just doesn't flash hook the guy and the Knight is dead, right? It's a good play. I like this play. Jax has TP. This is looking like a good play. They want to punish. It's like they are aware as Gwen pushes bot, the enemy team is not going to play bot side. They're going to play top side. Just from the fact that Gwen is pushing bot and she's pushing this wave deep. There's no play for the enemy bot. So they're matching top. And Hui reads this. It's good. But then they like misplay mechanically. Because I think this is a good play. Like, very clever play. Here, I think JDG, they are psychopaths for wanting to hit this turret, looking at what Jinx is doing. I think here you just take a base. There's no play for them. Here, just mechanical misplay, which I don't mind. Like this Jace without flash survives, and then the play becomes bad, right? And then the enemy, like, they misplay here, and somehow JDG, they win a fight 4v5. They trade 1-for-1, but this is 4v5. And Jinx is, like, farming. She's completely unleashed and farming. I'm telling you, Gamarai Blue, most of the time players know a lot better than most coaches. Most coaches don't understand this. I can say as well, before last year, I didn't understand this well either. I was one layer behind on macro. And that's why we lost like against Mad in the finals. Because I think that we had better individual players in the finals against Mad 2021. When we had Upset, Hilly, Bwipo, Niski, and Adam. I think we had better individual players. But they understood macro one layer deeper than us. So we were always a step behind when mid-game and late-game hit. It didn't matter the condition of the game. You think the issue is that LCK and LPL have too few seeds? You really think that, like looking at the LCK seeds, right? It's like Katie, for example. You think Katie wouldn't like slam some kids here at Worlds? They would too. How did you learn as a coach? Well, Humanoid was very helpful for this. It's like Humanoid helped me view the game a little different, and then it made me very curious to relearn how I view the game. And then I just did the research. No, BDS macro. No offense. It's like, I think BDS in the context of Europe was really, really fucking good. Really, really good. But their approach to the game also highlights a very, very distinct flaw of the region. Because their version of approaching Drakes, their early game was really solid. That I give them really big props for. Their early game was really, really solid. How they got their bot ahead was really fucking good. And I think that part is pristine. Really good. Their usage of Shio was really good. But in terms of how they approach Drakes, they were sacrificing a lot. And I think in a lot of games that BDS play, they will play against enemy solo laners having one item ahead of your solo laners after mid-game, and you will fucking bleed. But BDS found success doing that because the other teams that they beat, they tried to take over sides and do the side wave thing, but they were too late for Drakes. They would get caught, they would die, right? So I appreciate BDS's approach, and I don't want to like cause slander, right? But I want to make the example that BDS's macro working highlights the weakness of the region as a whole in the context of comparing them to Korea. It also helped that, you know, BDS were really, really good at understanding bot. I think that Labrov was the most versatile support in terms of what he was capable of playing and laning. And I think she was very good at securing bot and securing mid. Which EU teams who go to Worlds and World Championship qualifier, top 4? Like, I don't have a crystal ball, my friend. I think the Sion mid into Jace is not bad. I don't think it's a problem. But yeah, now they're really outskilled. I think the issue is more, it's like Braum is getting turbo value. And it's like, unless you are the best Jax player in the world and more, you're not going to carry this game, right? It's like, this whole draft is prepared for Jax to carry, but I think that's like so unrealistic. Really, really unrealistic. Very unrealistic. It's like this whole draft is, Jax, you need to 1v9 this game. It's like, your team picked Sion on 4, for you to counter pick Gwen, and you have to carry this game. But it's like, to tell a Jax he needs to carry the game is just, in the current state and age of the game, I think it's completely fucking unrealistic. Very unrealistic. But okay. Let's move on to the next game. Like at this point it's very hard, right? It's just the DPS race. Like look, like the difference in gold here on the Jace and the LDR being finished. The value of the tanks is really, really down in the dumpster. Would Billy do something with this draft? Well, it's like they tried. And that's why Ben is playing tanks as well now. Because he got sick and tired of this shit. Alright, game number 2. Golden Guardians going blue side. They ban Nidalee, Annie, Aphelios. And then Cannon, Ahri, Maokai is banned here on red. The difference here is K'Sante's in the picture. So K'Sante gets first picked. JDG banned Lulu Zeri and then Tristana Rel. Very surprising here that Wukong is prioritized over Vi, but I have been a proponent of Wukong not being that nerfed after the changes. Here JDG, right? Here it's tricky for them, right? Because K'Sante is flex and Tristana is flex. So they think that the odds of these two champions going mid is quite high. So they are banning Gragas and Elise. They're banning like the AP options to match together with K'Sante and Tristana mid, right? On stream I was like, they are disrespecting because Tristana Rel, like they already played it. But K'Sante flex is something that I didn't mention too much on stream, so like that is my bad, right? Because that's a big part of it. Syndra Sion gets banned, and here LeBlanc on 4. Here they want to just keep top pick until K'Sante shows. I don't like LeBlanc on 4 here too much, and I called Vylesandra. I think the blue side draft is quite strong here, of course pending how well the bot lane can lane into Zeri and Lulu. I think here it looks like blue side has very, very good chances. I don't think this is like a super fun LeBlanc game to play, and Gnar for 369 is something that is definitely like a meme. And Lulu Zeri, Tristana Rel, this is something that is definitely playable, and Wukong doesn't have a lot of pressure early, right? And then later, you know, I think this was probably the best draft the Golden Guardians got the entire series. Because I think this is very cohesive and very simple and easy to execute. This game, Licorice, definitely this whole tournament, I think he has earned his flowers. I think Golden Guardians as a whole, like really, Golden Guardians as a whole, I think that they are aware of their timers. They're aware of the enemy timers, and they're trying. They're trying to play. They're trying to achieve. They mis-execute, but that is fine, right? I don't mind that portion. That's something that you can fix. No problem, right? I think Licorice has been a very, very big glow up for Licorice, I think. Just really good performance all around. Very happy for Licorice. I'm trying to remember the key moments in this game. A lot of people ask, right? It's like, does Lissandra lose lane against LeBlanc? Yes, in isolation you lose. It's like Lissandra needs to feel pressured when she W's to get ganked, right? That's the majority of it, right? This is definitely like a jungle gap matchup, and then as you go, Lissandra and LB need to find value against the rest of the champs. Licorice gapped Bin and 369. No, let's not start that conversation about him gapping Bin again, because we've reviewed that way too many times. We continue. Boom. The circumstance here is the fact that like Licorice R's the Gnar E, and I think that 369 overpostured, and then he just has to flash, and the E gets cancelled by Licorice R, and then he just snacks on him. Really good job. Beautiful. 369 obviously entered, but we'll take it. We'll definitely take it. He puts on his Smurf shoes. He cancels Kanavi in the air with his E, and then the knock up, and 6A is going behind the turret. Very solid defense here to the dive. Very greedy, of course. But solid defense. Like, they don't know exactly the Vi position, but we take it. I think the JDG could have really enjoyed the wealth of their position here, because it's like Tristana is fucked, the Rel is fucked, Vi is behind, Wukong could just farm, they could just do Drake, they could have enjoyed everything. But JDG, very disrespectful to look for this dive. Very disrespectful. Extremely disrespectful. Because here, they could do Mountain, and Wukong could clear his bot side camps, and Zeri and Lulu can't get ganked. They played it so well, and then followed up with something so bad. The next event that happens here is just, I think they didn't press tab and realize that this LB has Mercury. I have to mention as well that Vi and Rel stepped into top side and K'Sante got a swap because all of the deaths and the fighting happened at the same time, right? K'Sante killed top, and then Tristana and Rel got some kills on bot on the Zeri. They pushed out, they got a clean lane swap with the Rift Herald. I like it. Now the next thing that occurs, let's just fast forward to this one because this one's a bit tough, right? It's like they're looking to kill a LeBlanc with Mercs, and I think Gory fucks up his W, which is tough. Here as well, you know, additionally from the mistake from before the JDG did, right? It's not only that it didn't get Drake, but the enemy is now stronger on bottom side and Vi has ult after Wukong ulted, and it leads to the enemy getting Drake. So this is very meaningful. Very meaningful. I'm just waiting for the Big Mac play they do here on mid. Here it comes. The Big Mac. One order of Big Mac, please. Ring, ring. Here it comes. Lissandra ult. No W from Gory. That's a tough one. I still don't think that they have lethal. I think he misestimates because of Mercs, but I think this is something that should be known if you're playing Lissandra into LB. Like every LB is going to buy Mercs. No, they switch after the first round of loser bracket. We fast forward. I really like the cross map here. K'Sante can't get Dove, and looking for something like this when you have Herald can be very good. Sure, you could argue that they are stronger and they can match. And in the end here, this was a massive swing for Golden Guardians. They commit all the way, and they know that Licorice can't get Dove, and they're trading this Drake for the full top side. And 369 tries to defend, and they know the tempo of the enemy. Zeri is showing on Wukong just finished Drake. Zeri is showing on mid. LeBlanc is showing on bot. They're just committing all the way because the only person who can be top is Lulu. Okay. They fuck him up. Missing just walks away, doesn't even flash, and they take a tier 2 for a Drake, which is not too shabby. Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. After this Wukong doesn't get the ult in, I think they needed to accept it. But Huhi with the nice combo here, the flash into E into W, really, really nice. If Stixie didn't waste his E, this would have been even juicier. Really, really good turn, you know. I like this from Golden Guardians. Good trade for the Drake, and JDG completely overreached and overplayed the situation. I think after the Wukong got ulted out by Tristana, there was no more play. There it is, right? There it is. Now at this point, this is looking like a beautiful game from Golden Guardians. Looking at their conditions, looking at their items. LeBlanc playing in such a game with Ludens. The enemy has a lot of MR. It's like Vi is reaching 2 core. K'Sante is reaching 2 core. All pressure on the map should be theirs. They feel stronger. We see here when Vi is basing. Vi is basing here. And then when Vi comes out of base, I'm trying to find the exact moment. Here Vi comes out of base. She finishes 2 core. K'Sante finishes 2 core. They are feeling fantastic, guys. They're feeling amazing walking into this Drake situation. And they pop the plant and they step into river right away. They don't waste time. They don't waste time. They step into river and they take over river. You know, this is very good movement, right? And then when you're stronger, you don't let go. You don't let go. There's a sequence yesterday in just as a point of comparison. Okay. C9 versus Billy, game 2. Okay. So as a point of comparison. Okay. It happened here. As a point of comparison. As a point of comparison here. I have to go further back. As a point of comparison. Here Syndra has no flash. Syndra has no flash. And Sion has tempo. Sorry, it wasn't this moment. I think it was right after the Herald situation. This is the moment. So Syndra has no flash. Wait. This is the moment. Here, right? Sven, Blabber. It's like here Lucianam is quite strong, right? They have Gale Force and Mandate, so that could be like against it. But right now they're taking over river, and they are showing on vision, and they're taking over river, but they're walking back into their own jungle. And in my mind here, Sion could walk into mid, right? Because he had the prior on the wave, and they can collapse on bot and defend the bot wave. But instead they go back to the jungle, they get spotted here, and Syndra can contest very freely. They're all getting spotted by this ward. And right now, currently, as it stands, Lucian and Ami are currently 2v3 on mid. And Vi can continue and proceed the rest of the game. They see that Kindred crosses into bot, right? So Vi is just defending the Syndra. When we look at this situation, it plays out very different, right? Because here, Golden Guardians, they know they're stronger. Lissandra is going on bot because they know that 3v3 they're stronger. Nara is on top, LeBlanc is on bot. 3v3 Golden Guardians feel and know that they're stronger. And they step into the situation here. They force a fight because, once again, they feel like they are a lot stronger. They have 2 core finish on K'Sante and so forth, and Nara is pushing top, and they just pull the trigger. Okay? I like that. It was a really cool play. Good play from Golden Guardians. They know they had a little bit of a tempo swing there on Tristana against Zeri, and they look to fight. Sure, the fight of the execution of the fight could be better. Knight could have played better. They could have played a little bit slower on Lissandra and timed it more in unison with everybody else. The enemy like over-postured and gave them like a free fight back. But this was a good play, right? Good job. JDG, of course, they are psychopaths. Like JDG was extremely disrespectful. If they play like this against even Billy, they will get slaughtered, right? Currently, I would favor KT. I would favor KT and like LNG and Damwon. I could see a world where they would beat every Western top at this Western team at this tournament. LPL teams are messy as fuck. I think that LPL teams are play way smarter, at least domestically, from what we've seen, than people give them credit for. They play very, very smart. How Alive could also slap up every Western team. OMG, yeah. OMG would slap all the Western teams, probably. It's like, I don't see the West being, like, favored. Maybe they could win, right? Maybe they could definitely win, because inherently a lot of these teams from LCK and LPL are flawed. But I wouldn't be like, oh, this is free win for West. There's a big window here while I was screaming in the champions queue that they should just fucking just do Nash. It's kind of cool from Kana because it's like 60, he gets predicted and he jumps into him, right? And then 60 flashes into him. This is just a very cool play from Kanavi, I think. There's going to be a point in time where Ruler has no cleanse. I think it was earlier, sorry. So basically, after this fight, I said on stream, Golden Guardians should push mid, take over, push them out of topside, and start Nash. When the enemy comes to contest, just press all your buttons on the enemy. The enemy can literally not play. Right now. It's not a 50-50. Look at these champs, okay? You plant Licorice here, okay? You plant Licorice here in this bush, on Kesante. You punch this with Vi and hit with Tristana. And then Rel and Lissandra, Tristana, they can all get over the wall. And you just CC one target, murder them. They have to face check you. But you just need to push them out. Right? I was calling, like people were saying that I'm fucking crazy and that it's a flip in the call, right? But it's not a fucking flip. It's not. There is such a big fucking item discrepancy. And also, no flash on LB, no flash on Lulu. And also, no cleanse on Ruler. This is a very big fucking opportunity here for Golden Guardians. Right? Huge opportunity. Massive opportunity. It's like Kesante should have pushed that wave. He should walk down here like he's pushing another one. I don't give a shit. I don't want to farm right now as Kesante. I want to pressure. It's like me pushing this next wave. What does it give me? I want to pressure now. I want to slam my Kekona machine onto the enemy. But Kesante pushes, so JDG can breathe here on mid for no reason. Imagine Kesante's here right now, Vi is here, Lissandra's here. Do you guys think these guys can breathe? Right now, this Kesante is selling his whole team to push. These guys can breathe so much, they put all the vision down topside because Kesante wants to push another wave. Why? Kesante has 2 completed items. His next item is going to be there in 5 minutes. It's outside of the window of influence that you have that is so big now. Look how weak this Zeri is. This is a Walmart Zeri right here. Look how weak this LB is. This is fucking Costco. The Wukong, Edeka. Pretty fucking strong, let's be honest. But JDG got a lot of breathing room over this. I am the LCK co-streamer for Sandbox. On Leaguepedia it says that I'm a content creator for them, but I'm just the LCK co-streamer. Like, our partnership doesn't extend beyond that. So now they finally start. But it's a lot later, right? And now Voidstaff is finished. Randuin's is finished. It just got worse, right? The situation just got worse. And on top of that, Golden Guardians didn't do any effort to push them out or put vision. So when the enemy is actually playing in this pocket, that they get slammed into the wall. No effort. So this is of course a completely different scenario. Randon's Omen is finished, Void is finished, fresh wards on Lulu, and Rel had no base. So Golden Guardians could have pushed JDG in because of the mid turret gone and the top turret gone. They could have pressured into this space the moment Kesante pushed the neutral wave on bot. They start Nash, park Kesante here, and if someone comes close enough to even breathe, he can be not yielded. He can get doomed. Like, it's so hard to cross. But now everything changes. There's no setup at all. Missy can place wards. They're playing in this pocket freely, and it becomes not so clean. Right? And they lose the window because Ruler's cleanse is coming up and he's finishing second core very soon. This is a good catch on missing. And then Kanavi responds back with killing the Tristana. We already watched this play, right? Now we jump forward. Tricky thing, right? As Zeri increases her power in this game, Lulu Zeri, they scale so exponential, you know? It's like 3 core of Zeri begins to become overwhelming. You don't have the tools to kill her. Maybe with Vi, you know, combo with Lissandra damage, maybe you have some odds, right? Because of Vi. But time is definitely not like your best friend when you're playing against Ruler Zeri with Lulu, okay? If it was different, I would say, yo, Vi ult and to murder her, but Ruler is a little bit of a different cookie. He's quite tough, you know? He's like one of those cookies that you left in your cupboard and then you have no snacks and you try to bite into it 3 years later and it becomes a disaster. Even though I think Golden Guardians have like strong macro ideas, I don't think I would favor them over... Like they have some good ideas in the game, but their execution is sometimes piss poor, right? Like already in this fight, like in this game, 3-4 sequences, their execution was so piss poor that I still would favor G2 over Golden Guardians. This is just weird, right? It's like imagine a world now where you viewed this situation. Like sure, if you one-shot LB, okay, it might work. C9 might just be the weakest Western team at the tournament. It's a toss-up between C9 and Mad Lions. Probably C9 is better than Mad. I will put G2, Golden Guardians, C9 Mad from performance. But, let's be honest, I also think Mad Lions played against the best team. So, I don't wanna like underrate them. Because Mad Lions might just be the second team. I'm just thinking out loud right now. Mad Lions played against probably the best performing Eastern team. You don't think JDG is better? Here's Mr. Supersonic Ears here. Okay. So this was terrible, right? They threw everything they could and Tristana needs to W over wall to even consider fighting here. But in my mind here, right, if you want to play this, it's like first and foremost, I don't know what the fuck Rel is doing. Like why is Rel warding bot side? Why on earth is Rel putting wards on bot side? Why? Because K'Sante is gonna take Nexus bot or what? Why is Rel putting wards on bot side? Completely trolling. No offense. Here Rel, like putting wards for these homies here is just troll. There's like, it's 26 minutes into the game. Everything is about natural. Don't need to put these wards on bot side. Maybe place one ward and it's okay if like you are on a base timer, right? But why is River and Gory here in this spot and Tristana Rel on bot side? I don't think it's that good. WDFF, WEF, whatever your name is, you're obviously not listening. So I suggest that you don't use the chat function unless you are really in tune with what I'm saying, because I will lose faith and trust in you, and I'll begin to slowly ignore all the messages you write. So here, Rel is very late to this fight, right? And I think in all honesty, if this was the position, it's like they cannot finish this. They can just play time. And then JDG will be pushed out on top. They will take all of the space here and it will be very awkward for JDG. Very awkward. Nah, probably Mad. Now, honestly, G2, Mad, Golden Guardians, C9. That's my rating. I think Mad beats Golden Guardians. Wow, Yamato's EU biased. I don't wanna like throw Mad under the bus everything they did all year because they got stomped by T1. Like you don't fucking like you get stomped by T1 and then all of a sudden like you are shit. Nah, this doesn't work like this. You like GENG? Yeah, GENG is cool. And now, honestly, I think Mad mentally boomed after game 1. No. It's like, they got opportunities in that game because T1 made a lot of mistakes and they got punished by Mad. But they weren't mental boom. There's no mental involved. They're just worse. Well, why can't that be the conclusion sometimes? That people just play worse. They are worse than the opposition. And sometimes that's the truth. And then the game's over. Yeah, it's like this play on Nash completely threw the game, right? It's kind of disappointing because it's like Rel's putting walls on bottom side, but the enemy team is just posturing on Nash, and I think it would have been a lot better. I think they like over-indexed on bot, and then they rushed because Rel wasn't a part of this fight, and Kesanta had nowhere to TP. But honestly, JDG's position was like worse here. It's like here, if Golden Guardian just didn't like snap at LB, right? Imagine a situation where like JDG can't finish Nash here, right? Imagine Lissandra comes from here, this angle, Tristana walks here, Rel comes here, there's TP from Kesante. These guys can't finish Nash. You'll just engage on the first target in this space and things will be good. But you need to play together and you need to start the way, fight in a way where Tristana can actually like hit without like Wing over wall. Like here, JDG will be pushed out of top side and they will lose whole position and then it's over. But here, JDG are going to spot this mistake and they're gonna smash your neck. Yeah. Game number 3. Game number 3, I think that this was JDG's best draft. I think Kha'Zix was a little bit arguable here. I thought they were just gonna pick Vi here on 4. But nevertheless, I think if Gragas Xayah Rakan is showing, going Rengar Galio for 5 is really fucking troll. We were talking in the call. I think that red side giga outscales, by the way. Like, I don't. It's like. I think the amount that Gragas, Rakan, and Nautilus will contribute to the game to make Xayah way stronger than Jinx is unfathomable. It's like, I don't think it's realistic for Cannon to find any flank or anything. Kha'Zix needs to chill in bushes and be the second person to go. I think that it's a tough one, you know? Like just Rengar Galio into these 3 is terrible. Rengar Galio is fine into Kha'Zix, and I thought that picking Kha'Zix here into Cannon showing or whatever is not the best, but I just think that these champions are so bad into Xayah, Rakan, Gragas. Nautilus on 5, probably you can find something better than Nautilus on 5, but they just picked something tanky and that's fine, you know? They picked something tanky. I think Nautilus is good against Rengar, but it's evenish against Galio, I would say. Alright, game number 3. There was this trade situation, all-in fight here on bottom side. One side started, but they basically started in their jungle. And then when they wanted to cross, they realized, and Rengar is very strong in this situation, flashing the W. Kha'Zix is not the strongest here. Kanavi didn't run, like he needs to fucking run, buy time for his homie. And then we had the flash hook from Huhi. Very cool. Boom. That's nice. Very nice. So now when it comes to the conversion of it all, right? There was the Kha'Zix who gets a very strong base. And Kanavi really leverages his serrated Dirk to the absolute fucking max. He slams his... I really need to expand my vocabulary beyond like testicles and sacks. But he slams his body in the jungle. He pushes out River and Knight hovers. They don't know the situation. I think the moment Knight shows on mid, this is where River needed to be in position to pounce on Kanavi, right? I think if he was in position now to pounce on Kanavi, then maybe you can Gali ult and Kanavi could be in trouble. We continue. Kanavi pieces out because Nautilus is on the mid wave and he has a ward. He walks back on the crab. And now Gori needs to be back into mid to catch, and then Nautilus will hover. And then through this hover, they are going to just take all the topside camps. Like here, knight went for a play, didn't work. I honestly care so little about mechanical misplays because the idea of it is correct, you know? It's like, Kanavi found a really good window here to snack on river, and he's leveraging his fucking serrated dark, and they're looking for this play. I understand why they went for it. I think it's good. In the end, river got pushed out, right? Because of the synergy there, and they didn't leverage the window where Galio hovered instead of going on the wave. And Kanavi walked out, and that's it. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't understand what happened bot, because every time they panned into bot, it's like here, it's like Stixie just does a dry base, okay? I mean, who he just does a dry base? What is, I don't understand this base. What is this base? Who he just dry bases? He dry bases, and then Stixie is eating shit. He loses HP, and like, who he based for Ninja Tabi? And now who he is back, but Stixie needs the base. And it doesn't matter who he has great conditions, but Stixie is fucked. I didn't understand this base here. I didn't get it. They get the Drake off of it. They are having a good time. A fucking mountain Drake, you know, they are sailing. Completely smooth sailing. Rengar is also completely fucked in the game, right? Because Kha'Zix just got such a big advantage by taking his wolves, the Golem, the Grumpy, and Nautilus was just better in connecting with Kanavi. And Rengar cannot contest bot, right? In the end, they'll probably get fucked bot either way. I just thought it was kind of weird how it happened. Because like if you base with Thresh there, then maybe you consider basing with Jinx together, or like you blow up the wave with Jinx mana into base. Like you look for something, you know? You set it up. And then like Jinx maybe doesn't need to lose as much HP to the QEs. Here there's just a support gap, right? It's like after the situation on bot, right now Herald is alive and Stixie based, but Huhi is trying to freeze the bot wave at minute 8. So they see now the Thresh is oinking and masturbating bot, and now missing is first. What is Thresh doing right now, man? What is Thresh doing right now? He's completely vibing. Look how late he is. We lose this Rift Herald fight because Thresh wants to have 6 minions. He wanted 6 minions, guys. And that's why we lose this Herald situation. Well, we win it in the end. But it was fucking damn close. It was damn close. I forgot that they fucking lost this fight, actually. The flash is just too good. The flash is just too good. No, guys, don't get me wrong. Who he played the series good. Who he played the series good. Who he is better than Missing? Bro, Missing played Lulu and Braum. Like, what the fuck do you want Missing to do, man? Right? It's such a weird metric to measure them by. This is the usual metric, right? I'm making a team and language is not a thing. I'd probably look to Missing over Huhi. That ain't no career, Lulu, though. No. Missing is good, guys. Missing is good. All right. Thank God who he made it in the end, guys, and they got to pick up some kills. But Kanavi picked up the Herald, and that matters a lot. Look at this clean execution here. It's like I don't know what happened to Stixie again, because my man's just losing HP 1v1. He's just losing HP 1v1. He's getting Bobbish murdered, and through this HP that he lost here, Ruler is going to unleash the Thanos comp. Gory flashes. Knight is dead from the Rift Cristiano Geraldo situation, I believe, or am I crazy? Yeah, the Cristiano Geraldo. Now, Galio is late on tempo. Ruler's hard pushing to check if he can make 60 stay. And then Nautilus. It's like either he hard pushes and 60 stays, or he slow pushes and Jinx will base and will come back fresh. Nautilus has tempo because they saw the Galio on mid, and now they're just crossing in the bottom side, and Xayah has tempo because he fucked the Jinx in the isolated 1v1. Which he probably should be able to because of like Jinx W, right? And now once again we have Hui here alone on bot. He has no homies. And JDG is just crossing into bottom side. There's no Galio ult, no Galio flash. He's going on the mid wave. Here probably, I don't know if it's correct for Galio to go on the mid wave, because I think they could have gotten Dove bot. Like they could have gotten murdered. I think probably JDG are not aware of Galio ult cooldown. I thought that this would be lights out here for Jinx, and it's like you have Rakan with ult, Nautilus with ult, you have all the buttons in the world. I thought that Golden Guardians is going to lose their necks here. So they kind of get away with murder here on the Gori tempo situation. You see, JDG, they are kind of wild in the way they play the game, man. Like, yeah, just... I don't know how Stixie... Like, Stixie looks like... You know, as you grow older, it's like... As you grow older, you are like a Range Rover, you know? You are reliable, strong, you know? You're reliable, you know, as you grow older. I don't know where I'm going with this analogy. I want to say that when you're young, you're like a Ferrari, you know? You fucking... But you fucking drive into a wall. I was trying to say is, this looks like a baby in a Ferrari, you know? He's fucking... All he needs to do is like reposition into topside. And Hui needs to help him reposition. But he's just fucking drifting here. You're just fucking spinning around in a circle. And then his position is completely lost, you know? And boom. Car accident. And now the game is over. Because Kanavi is completely Bobby shredded. Alright, guys. Now for the breakdown of the other matchups. I didn't think about them too much, if I'm gonna be perfectly honest. So this is going to be very like impromptu, like in the moment. Forgot his place or trust the team too much? Both. In terms of the upcoming matchups, we have GENG versus T1. So I think the key reason why T1 were beaten in the BO5, I think that GENG had a much better read on the meta. Much better read on what to play mid. Much better read on top. Much better read on what to play bot too. If I bring you back to what happened in that series. In this particular series, like nowadays, you look at red side and people would say this is Exodia, right? This is just straight up Exodia. You go 4-5 with Lissandra ban on 5, you get Ahri. You get away with picking Ahri here on 5? That's crazy. You get Wukong pre-nerfs Xayah Rakan with the enemy dropping support bot. That is tough. Those are tough things, right? This looks very, very clean and clear-cut for GENG to play. I think GENG is a very, very strong macro team, and they are very good at playing disciplined, right? And I think that the meta hasn't changed too much for GENG, and they can stick to the same rules. But if you think about how T1 can find a lot more accuracy in their bans in 1, 2, 3, and also in the way they pick, you see that T1 in the series against Mad Lions are very aware that they want to play very bot heavy, they want to make Zeus complementary, and Faker is really, really leaning into the role of being the player that is going to support his team with the Gragas pick or with the Lissandra, Ahri, you know? And people like to talk about how T1 choked, and I think that T1 made mistakes, right? They made mistakes that made them look quite bad. But I think in the end, right? I think in terms of what adjustments they could have made coming into this series, I think it just comes down to, once again, the preparation, right? And I think that T1, what they showed against Mad Lions, they seem to be a lot more in tune with what the meta is. And right now, I think that in regards to that, right? Like T1, finally this one game, right? This is very standard, stock standard stuff that we see, right? They banned Ahri 1, 2, 3, K'Sante they removed, Wukong, Jinx, Tahm Kench into the Xayah Rakan, and then they just slam Veigar Sion 4-5, right? This is not something that looks like something that T1 would want to play all year long. They were very used to playing a very choke the enemy by the neck through bot with the Kalistas and the Caitlyn's and the Varuses, and they had to do some restructuring, right? They had to do some restructuring. And I think T1 coming into this series, I think that they are favorites, and I think that they will win 3-1 against GENG, because I feel like T1 have a much clearer read on the meta, and I think that individually they are sharper. And I think still you have to look at the body of work of T1 to reach that finals. They did beat GENG before, and I think that GENG improved a lot coming into that finals. But I think that GENG is the epitome of, you know, disciplined play, but I think that T1 can match them on that foot and also add additional layers to it. I think that T1, you know, if there's a potential angles for them, I think that Chovy is a fantastic player in isolation. Like, when it comes to the lane phase, I think he's absolutely brilliant. I think that, you know, the way he plays Tristana, the way he plays Ahri, the way he farms side lane is a massive weapon for GENG. But the main question will be, you know, I think T1, probably they won't be allowed to play Nautilus. T1, if they can play Gragas cases, if they can play Lissandra cases, and Ahri will be target banned, you know, I think this is where they can find some pain. Because the GENG G2 series showed a whole lot more about GENG than the Mad Lions T1 series did about T1. Because I think G2 managed to find some very, very interesting bans that managed to have a very good positive impact. And I think that T1 can leverage that. So if we look in the first series, right, we had the Aphelios via Ahri. So this was a 1-2-3 that GENG did the previous weeks, and G2 tried the Draven Nidalee, right? As the series progressed, G2 transitioned into K'Sante, Vi, Nidalee, and then the Maokai came out swinging. And I think this is the alteration that I like the most. But, of course, they don't need to ban Aphelios. That is the key difference, right? T1 don't need to ban Aphelios. But targeting Vi and Maokai does shut down a lot of these nice combos that they played. The Maokai Tristana, the Vi Ahri. It does shut down a lot of that. And I think this is where the secret lies. I think making sure that Peanut is off of these champions, I think will yield a lot of fruit for T1. And even in this series, right, G2 felt like they found the recipe, and the Keisante wasn't looking that great, right? Keisante is a champion that was banned a lot against GENG, but this is something that they can maybe consider to begin to open up, right? But even then, if they want to remove the Keisante, they could ban Vi, Keisante, Maokai and compete with them on even footing when it comes to bot lane. And I think GENG is a great team. I still think T1 is the greater team coming into this best of 5. And I think that the biggest edge GENG had on the day was that they had a really, really fucking strong meta read. But to their own benefit and also their own detriment, I think that for GENG, the meta didn't change much. So they can stick around playing in the same sphere. And, you know, that's a benefit, but it's also a detriment because teams can then catch up. I'm curious to see the development here of Peanut. He played the Lees. He could play Papushka, right? He could play Poppy. I think Wukong is still fucking strong. I think this is where GENG, if they figure out what to plug and play there, I think things can be very good. But it's all about finding the combos that make sense. Because maybe still, I'm talking about this, and maybe this composition is exactly the same with just Wukong instead of Vi, right? It changes a little bit, but maybe it just remains the same. So that will be the big question for me. I think T1 is favored here, but I think it's going to be a really fucking exciting series. I don't think it's going to be like some massive blowout, but I think T1 walk into this series looking better. Yeah, I don't think it's like some T1 fanboy take to think that they are favored coming into this best of 5. I think that's perfectly okay. Like if people want to dismiss your opinions and just call you names and imply your intention, there's no real argument there. So just don't worry about it when people say that's a fanboy take or whatever. Like it would be like a fanboy take if you say, Faker is the GOAT, he's going to piss on them. Like, that's kind of a fanboy take, you know? It's like, sure, he is the GOAT, but it's not really relevant in the context of them walking into this best of 5, right? So don't worry about that. The other one, Mad versus G2. Mad versus G2, I think, is an interesting one because looking back at the series, the last time they faced off, it was a very close series. Some might say that this was the real final, but let's not say that because I think it's unfair to disrespect our homies. I think that, you know, both teams haven't played a lot of Aphelios. I think that in regards to how you approach Mad Lions, I think that very similar to T1 and GENG, I think that the hand is revealed. Basically, what you need to ban against Mad Lions in order to attack their repertoire, it has been revealed. Gragas, Rakan, and then finally Vi. Remove these champions, and what Mad Lions have shown behind that door of bans has not been that exciting. So if you think back at these cities, Mad Lions, G2 are banning Vi, Jace, Maokai as an example. G2 is banning Annie, Vi, Jace. Look, Mad Lions are getting Kennen, Xayah, Rakan, right? Kennen you can give up, maybe you have to, right? But Xayah, Rakan is getting through, and they're playing fucking Akshan, right? Looking at game number 5, look how dizzy G2 is. They're playing Jace. Broken Blade is playing Jace. And the Annie ban is still there, and Gragas is going through. So, I think, once again, very similar to the GENG T1 theory. I still think Mad Lions is a strong team, but I think that G2 is going to be favored here. I think that they have improved the amount of tools they have coming into draft, and I think that the bans that you need to ship in their direction, it's basically, you know, a very easy case study. And I think that's where you need to press them. But I end with this. If you walk into a series and you say, we ban Vi, Gragas, Rakan, and we're going to break the enemy apart. If they prove to you that there is an additional layer to that, and you've walked into the series with 3 locked bans, that can get dangerous. But Mad Lions didn't exactly prove this in the series against T1. But then again, proving anything against T1 is insanely difficult. Let's just take a look at Mad Lions' draft against T1, right? Gragas, Rakan, Vi. Gragas, Rakan, Vi. Gragas, Rakan, Vi. We have one-time cannon followed by Kesante. Next game, Mad Lions, they stick with the same bands. They do the cannon, and then they picked Xayah because they were very scared of the NB, of course, banning 4-5 Xayah. Here, the weakness for me in my mind is the fact that Mad Lions didn't prepare Nautilus. But they prepared the Gragas in one day. Maybe they prepared the Nautilus too. Because I think either they're going to be banning Nautilus themselves, or maybe this is going to be a first pick contest champ. Why does everyone ban those 3 against Mad? Because these are the most successful champs for Mad. And the other champs is something that you can deal with. Vi enables a lot of combos for them. Rakan is just hilly Rakan, and also I think that the best champion of Karzi is actually Xayah. And I think Rakan enables Xayah super hard, right? And then Gragas is just something that they win on constantly. Just win on it constantly. They're very good at facilitating it around mid, and Nitsky is a very patient and disciplined player when it comes to those things. And that's why I think G2 is favored. Crazy, huh? To predict the losers of the last time they matched up, but the truth is always in the pudding. And so far, I have been extremely accurate in all of my predictions, so I invite you to follow along on this journey, because I have read all of these matchups by the T. Thank you very much, guys, for watching my breakdown of this series and also tomorrow's matchups. This will continue throughout the entire MSI event, and I'll catch you guys on the flippity flop.